Hi everybody, and welcome back to Lookouts. Before we begin, I just wanted to say that this game has recently been included on the Queer Games Bundle 2023 on itch.io. If you pay $60 for that, you will get this and a whole bunch of other games, and the money goes directly to the developers. So consider picking that up if that sounds like a thing you might be interested in doing. Now then, let's get back to the story. It's the morning. You're awake early. You didn't sleep much anyway, as much as you tried to. The sun was as bright as always, coming through the yellowed fabric of the tent. You laid awake, waiting for others to get up, waiting for Curly Wolf. He'd start rallying guys together for the ride to Clemency soon enough. You needed to make sure you were there. The minutes ticked by, and you heard more people get up, the camp coming to life once more with the sounds of work and talk. You got up and got yourself ready, sitting on your bedroll after and waiting more. Then, the voice of Curly Wolf.
Alright boys, gather round. We're heading to the town of Clemency this morning. I need 10 or so men with me to haul valuables. It's around a half day's ride from here. Who's coming to get our gold?
You heard all this as you were leaving your tent, making your way to the small crowd of canines. Instantly there were people joining, eager to prove themselves, to get their hands on real gold. 1, 2, 3 already. You subtly pushed your way through the crowd, trying to reach the front. Pushed out the edge of the crowd by the huddling bodies, you found yourself standing in front of Curly. He stared at you, even as he clapped the hands and shoulders of other guys walking past, joining the excitable group.
What are you standing there for, tomboy? We don't need any little pups out to help shift the goods.
You needed to be on this crew. You couldn't talk back to him, though. You didn't know what to say. What could you say? You just kept standing there.
You think you're gonna be of any help with this scrawny stick?
He grabbed your arm, raising it up and down, shaking it by the wrist. Every inch of you was screaming to snatch your arm from his hand, but you knew what would happen if you did. He threw your arm back at you, making you stumble a little.
Go make yourself useful someplace else. I only need real men for this trip.
You had to say something. You had to. You had to. You had to be there. You'll need a lookout. He was looking at the assembled group, doing a quick head count.
Alright boys, that's 10. Be ready to move out in 5 minutes.
He didn't seem to hear you. Your words were quiet, whispered. You tried again.
You'll need a lookout, Curly.
His ears twitched. He still didn't turn to face you.
I heard you the first time. Stop yapping at me about bullshit.
We don't know when the townsfolk will be back. It'll be bad if they come back while you're there, and even worse if there's no one keeping an eye out. Y'all will have your hands full already. You heard him sigh, and a little growl rose in his throat before it subsided into nothing.
Fine then, tomboy. If you're that eager to come, I suppose I'll have to let you. You're riding in the wagon. You don't need a horse.
No, you didn't get that privilege when other people needed them, you supposed. The wagon was fine by you. You knew it was a punishment of kinds, that you'd be riding in it on the way back, too, along with everything else. Boxes and sacks and supplies and whatnot, all bumping about, hoping none of them fall over and hit you. Cramped space with nowhere to sit or lie, just standing for hours waiting for it to stop.
Get a move on.
You followed after Curly to get ready. Of course, what Curly didn't know was that you weren't going to be coming back here. Neither of you were. From where you sat, slumped in the corner of the wagon, the wind whistled through the gaps in the canvas next to your head. The edges flap, the wind ruffling your clothes and your fur, drying up your nose as you sit with your knees up. The wagon rocks and bumps as it's dragged by horse through the desert, and this corner is the only place you feel safe enough to stay. You can at least keep yourself steady even as it tried to knock you about, clinging onto the wooden frame. Looking toward the entrance of the wagon, where the covering split down the middle, you couldn't see much. Or rather, what you could see were great clouds of dust, billowing out from the wheels and into the dry air. As uncomfortable as the wagon was, at least it provided you shelter from the sun, unlike riding on horseback. The winds coursing past your ears were welcome too, cooling your head that was swimming with thoughts. You knew you were close to Clemency now. The entourage had been traveling long enough. As you got closer and closer, the minutes stretched on. You felt sick to your stomach. Less so butterflies, more like hornets. This was going to be it. This was what you'd been waiting for. Not just for days, but years, really. A chance like this. All the anxieties and concerns you'd pushed down last night were rushing back up like geysers. What if Joseph wasn't there? What if his gang wasn't there? What if you reached Clemency and Curly realizes you were lying? What if you couldn't kill them both? Or they demolished the town and Sheriff came back to find nothing left? To find you'd broken your promise? What if you were killed? Quickly or slowly? You'd seen Curly kill traitors before. The simple fear of dying took hold of your heart. The chill of the Reaper's shadow. No. This wasn't going to be it. This isn't all there was going to be. You'd see him again, soon. You'd do what you had to, together. This wasn't going to be it. There would be more after. It was hard for you to imagine, but you knew it to be true. There would be days after today. You wanted to see them. And if you die, at least it was for a reason. You sure as hell weren't going to go out without a fight. This was a risk you'd always be willing to take. You and Joseph would take it together, and you were going to see it through. You steeled your resolve, locking the furnace of your heart so that no one may put it out. The rumble of the wagon started to slow. The rocking back and forth became gentler and gentler, until everything came to a stop with a small lurch. The constant motion that had been in your body was gone all of a sudden. Everything seemed impossibly still. Like when the many conversations in a bar all died down suddenly, leaving it quiet in a strange moment. You heard the thud of Curly jumping off of his horse, and crawled the floor of the wagon to the front. Curly came and opened the low wooden door, letting you slide out of the wagon and jump out. A helicopter anachronistically passing by you overhead. Anyway. The light of the late morning sun was blinding, and you held your arm over your brow to shelter your eyes. As your eyes adjusted, the bright desert became clearer. Hazy rock formations in the distance became familiar. Walking around the wagon, you saw the shapes of buildings that set your teeth on edge. The town of Clemency.
Here we are, boys. What a shithole. No one here, at least. We'll take what we're here for and leave sharpish. Won't know what hit 'em. Ain't that right, tomboy?
He slapped you hard on the back. There was an anticipation in the air amongst yourselves. This was the place they'd been waiting for. You'd been waiting for it too, but the anticipation was not one of eagerness. Even in your brief visit here, many things had happened. In some way, being back in Clemency was comforting. Despite that, you couldn't ignore the chill in your wings at the prospect of what will come next. There was no backing out now. It felt like those few times in the past, when the fuse on a stick of dynamite had been lit and you were still holding it. There was only going to be a few moments more until the sparks reached the end of the wick. Curly started walking into the town, and you followed suit with everyone else, staying close behind him. Clemency was dead quiet, not a soul in sight, just like Sheriff said it'd be. He studied the town as he walked down the main street, peering through windows, drawing up plans in his head. Every building you walked past filled you with a little more fear. You were still waiting for something to happen, for anyone else to appear. Soon enough, Curly would want to get started for real and ask you where the gold was supposed to be. Then, at the end of the street, you saw what you were waiting for, who you were waiting for. A hazy, clumped group of guys making their way up onto the main street from the other side of the town. As they got closer, it became clearer. The figure of a tall and slender bird, with many others in tow straggling behind him, much like you behind Curly. Curly stopped as he spotted the group too, staring them down.
Now who the hell is that in my town?
He started walking again, with purpose and menace, and they quickened their pace and turned towards you. You felt your heart beating in your chest now, reaching up to your throat, blood rushing, adrenaline starting to build in you. They were really here, and you could see Curly wasn't happy about it. Both sides slowed as they came closer to each other, coming to a stop halfway down the street, a few dozen paces between them. Not too close, not too far. You saw Black Vulture much more clearly now, and he was looking with intrigue at Curly. You looked past him though, desperately searching the small crowd of people following in his wake, until you saw the one you'd been waiting for. Joseph, stony-faced and stern, blending in with his compatriots. It was almost funny to compare to the laid-back and jovial man you'd gotten to know. After a few moments longer of staring each other down, Black Vulture spoke.
Well, well, is that who I think it is? The infamous Curly Wolf? What's it to you? And what are you doing in my town?
Well, I'd imagine we're both here for much the same reason. I've heard tales of your exploits.
Can't say the same. Who are you?
I'm Black Vulture, gentleman outlaw of the...
Doesn't ring a bell.
The feathers of Black's neck clearly ruffled at Curly's rebuttal, but he waved it off. More fool you, I say.
You here for the gold then?
Yes, and how strange that we might run into each other like this. Now I'm willing to bet you're not a sharing man.
Like I said, this is Curly Wolf property now, so you best go on and fly away.
No, I don't think we will be, Curly. I think it would be a shame for so much gold to be wasted on scum like you.
Should keep that highfalutin beak of yours shut, lest you want the barrel of a gun inside it.
Let us see then, Curly Wolf. To the victor go the spoils, and I intend to spill that tiny brain of yours across the dirt.
Fine by me. Don't need much brain to shoot you.
This wasn't how you'd wanted things to go. You and Joseph were still in the thick of it, facing each other. You thought you'd be out of the fight. The air was still. Hands came to hover over guns, every pair of eyes trained on the opposing side, waiting. In a standoff like this, it was a test of the boss's mettle, their mental fortitude. How long would anyone last before pulling the trigger? Trying to psych each other out. Being the first to take the shot wasn't always the best call, but having to react to that first shot could be worse. It was a test of loyalty, too, for everyone following them. Your underlings couldn't step out of line or take the shot themselves. To break rank early would be a betrayal, but when bullets went flying, it was unpredictable. Staying meant a risk to yourself. You knew Curly was a good shot. He had the upper hand here, but you were reminded of something Joseph told you. Black Vulture wasn't the shootist. He had someone else for that. You could brag, but he wasn't the real one. You thought about whether Curly should know. Screw Curly Wolf, he doesn't deserve to know. No. It was better if Curly didn't know about the shootist. As dangerous as it was to leave someone like that hanging around during a fight, it was more a danger to him. The seconds dragged on. It felt as though your very breath may tip the scales, chest heavy from breathing the air of people who wanted to kill you. There was safety in numbers, and the crowd. Even so, you found yourself for the first time thinking about running. Never before had you considered it. This time was different, of course. There wasn't going to be a next time. Running would tip the scales for sure, but you couldn't know in whose favor. Play it safe with the gang, or run and let all hell break loose. For the record, each combination of choices you make here, telling or not telling Curly about the shooter, staying here or running away, each combination of choices here results in a different outcome of the following scene. If you want to see all of the scenes for yourself, then I highly recommend going out and getting lookouts and reading it for yourself. As for what we're doing for this read-through, we're going to stay. No. If you ran, you might make yourself a target. Better to stick with the gang till they scatter. Curly spoke up in a low voice, cast to those behind him. Watch and learn, boys. He flexed the wrist of his hand, holding it out, before clutching his gun in its holster. You saw Black Vulture react in turn, reaching for his gun. Curly likes to play with his food, to show off. He waited for the moment Black grabbed his gun the same, then quickly and expertly pulled it free, pointing it dead straight. He knew he'd always be quicker on the draw. The shot rang out, a bang that made your heart jump, and you saw Black Vulture double over, clutching his side. The smoke was barely rising from the barrel of Curly's gun when another shot rang out. Full on ego and admiring his handiwork, he hadn't noticed one small bird hanging on the edge of the crowd that had raised his rifle. Curly's face instantly twisted into a full-toothed cry of pain, eyes clenched shut, staggering back a step as he clutched at the side of his chest. Fuck! A moment passed before the crowd behind you dispersed, everyone running to take cover as the fight broke out. On the other side, you saw the same, the clump of figures scattering like ashes to either side of the street. It's on! You couldn't see where Joseph went, and you couldn't afford to hang around as more shots were fired. Curly was struggling to move, and he turned to see you still standing there, alone. A bullet whizzed by, striking the ground. He gave you a look and slumped over onto you, one arm slung over your shoulder, much of his weight bearing down on you now. You had no choice but to help carry him out of the street, knees shaking as you walked as quickly as you could. Your compatriots fired a volley of rounds down the street, providing you enough cover to drag your bleeding boss between two buildings. He was heavy on your neck, and wobbling as you walked together, his stride still outpacing you as you tried to keep up and push him along. You kept walking through the long clump of houses that lined the main street, pushing through to the other side where it gave way to a hill. At a corner that led out of the shade, he rested against the wall, lightening the load off of you as he craned his neck to check if the way was safe. Again, without a word, he re-slumped onto you, and you walked around the corner together. Curly used the house as a support too now, bloodied hand dragging across the walls as he used you to drag him ever forward. Gunshots continued to ring out, bouncing through the alleys and streets next to you. The acrid smell of gunpowder grew stronger, even as your nose was full of the scent of Curly's sweat-laden fur. Gross. You stumbled along this back path a little more before Curly's weight on you suddenly became crushing. The gravity itself had become stronger. The full weight of Curly lay on you for a moment, before your knees buckled and he slid off with a grunt. He threw out a hand, trying to catch himself, scraping it on the wall of a house as he fell, coming to sit in the dirt. He sat with his back flat against the slatted wooden wall, one hand reaching across to grasp his side so hard you could see the tendons. The other hand clutched his gun, finger resting next to the trigger. He breathed slowly and heavily through gritted teeth, staring out over the edge into the rest of town, across roofs and into the desert. His ears twitched with the pop of guns around you, seeming to come from every direction. This was the best chance you were going to get, you thought. He was so vulnerable looking. Some part of your mind, though, said you couldn't. You can't kill him. Something will go wrong. He's a hurt and cornered animal right now.
Staring real hard at me there, my tomboy. Worried I'm gonna croak on you? Don't. I'm not going anywhere.
You could feel the weight of your gun in your holster as you shifted on your feet, the space where your hand needed to be to grab it. Curly fidgeted about, like it was impossible for him to get comfortable where he was, before giving up and sitting crooked.
We'll hide out here for the time being. The boys will take care of things. You're not much good in the fight, but you're better protection than nothing. Some of Black Vulture's lot might come this way, so keep your eyes peeled.
You gently unholstered your gun, letting it dangle on your fingers by the handle. You didn't want to stick around. You didn't know how the fight was going. You didn't know if Joseph was alright. You were just wasting time, standing there with this bastard bleeding on the ground next to you. Just shoot him. That's all you had to do. Just shoot him and be done with it. You've killed people before. He deserves it more than most. And still, you can't bring yourself to do anything. Your ears prick up. You hear the sound of someone running this way, thudding fast against the dirt, and look up. You swing your gun up hastily, ready for whoever's coming your way. You don't see anything for a few more moments, until a bird comes running out, looking around frantically. It was Joseph. Panting, holding his shotgun in both hands, and as he looks your way and his eyes land on you, they light up like the brightest fireworks.
Ah, shit, there's one!
The glint of Curly's gun shone in the corner of your eye as he moved, arms crossing his body, pointing upward. Joseph's eyes widened, pupils becoming pinpricks, trying to turn tail and run as he saw Curly take aim. It was all so quick, and felt like an eternity as you yourself lifted your gun, aiming directly at Curly's hand as it steadied itself. Before doubt and fear could take a hold, you squeezed the trigger and saw his hand explode. The sound of the shot rattled through your head. Joseph staggered and stopped as it went off. Curly snatched his hand away. His gun dropped to the ground with a dull thud, and he buried the hand into himself, crying out and growling.
Oh, fuck! What?
He looked bewilderingly at Joseph, failing to understand what had blasted the fingers off his hand, before looking to his side, at you. Looking at the wisps of smoke from the barrel of your gun. You felt yourself panting heavily, hands shaking. In fact, your whole body shaking with adrenaline. You heard the thump of footsteps again and looked up to see Joseph run over, slowing as he neared you and Curly. The two met eyes, anger and disgust spilling onto Curly's face in equal amounts, while Joseph's became pitiful, you thought.
So this is him, huh? The great Curly Wolf?
Joseph came down from your eye level, crouching to Curly, studying his face.
All makes a little more sense now. Found yourself a little buddy, did ya? He won't stick around. I can see it in his eyes.
Shut your trap, Curly. Anger flitted across Curly's brow, but he wasn't stupid. He knew he wasn't getting out of this situation. He was as good as dead.
You really are two peas in a pod. Traitors and cowards who just run from everything.
His breaths were haggard, throat hoarse and harsh, holding on out of spite more than anything else.
Whatever he told you, promised you, tomboy, it's not real. I know people like that when I see it. When things get tough, he'll leave. He'll run, like all the other times. Or will you run first? You might say that's not so, but I know you're a liar. Always have been. Should've known you'd betray me sooner or later. Saw it in your eyes all those times. Never liked you.
Do you even know his name? Joseph regarded Curly coolly, but his anger wasn't concealed by the sharp spite in his voice or the clench of his jaw.
Doesn't matter. What's a name, anyhow? If I call someone and they come, that's their name.
Answer the question. Do you know his name? Curly squinted up at Joseph, the sun shining in his face. You and Joseph's shadows cast up the wall beside him.
No, of course I don't.
The deafening blast of Joseph's shotgun cut him short, and he flinched away, averting your eyes from the peppered red mess of his chest. You followed the momentum of your flinch, turning around, gazing out across the hill and down into the town, breathing in and out. You heard one last breath of sorts behind you, a gurgle of blood from the mouth, and the rustle of clothes as he fell limp. Wrong answer. Robin? You gingerly reached a hand behind at him, tugging at his shirt when you found Purchase, pulling yourself in. His arms caught you as you took a weak step toward him, returning his embrace as he held you close, your heads over each other's shoulders. There was a pit in your stomach making you nauseous. You closed your eyes as he breathed in, focusing on his smell, so close to you. Are you all right? Are you hurt?
I'm fine. I'm fine.
You pulled away from each other as you heard more gunshots, the fight starting up again, no doubt caused by Joseph's shotgun.
We need to get somewhere safe. Wait for this to blow over. Once they realize Curl is dead, the guys will probably hightail it out of here. Where's Black Vulture?
Not sure. Lost him when the fight broke out. I was more concerned about finding you, really. Holstering your gun, you stooped down and picked up Curly's revolver from where it had fallen. You grabbed Joseph's hand and placed it on your shoulder to pull him with you, walking briskly, keeping on the way you'd been going already.
We can skirt around the edge of town and make our way to the saloon. Safest place I can think of.
Joseph nodded and followed you, trailing by his arm, your gun held firm and ready in your hand, cautious of every alley you passed. You kept following the edge of the hill, heading for where the street bent, sheriff's office being across the way. You were aiming to loop round the back of the office and avoid the firefight in the street, but as it came into view, a tall figure started to pass by. He didn't notice you at first, but the sound of you both stopping short caught his attention, and you met the eyes of Black Vulture. Well, well, what do we have here? Taken a prisoner, Joseph? You could see the blood staining his coat, his shirt, on the side of his stomach where he pressed a hand, but he seemed surprisingly unfazed. Following Black from behind the building came the bird you recognized as the shootist, the one who shot Curly. He stood behind Black, rifle firm in both hands, a mask covering his face, small eyes watching keenly. The grip of Joseph's hand on your shoulder grew tighter, and he pulled you toward him a little, continuing to walk you forward slowly. Yeah, thought he might be useful. Should have some knowledge about Curlewolf's hideouts and whatnot. Black grunted, hunched over but now standing taller, his crooked neck raising his head above you. Always so quick on your feet, Joseph. It's good thinking. I'm just curious as to why you're not holding him to gunpoint. He took a few steps closer to you both. Or indeed, why I had to take a bullet for your actions. my actions.
You ran, you slimy traitorous coward. You ran with your tail between your legs, and now I'm bleeding from the stomach.
Your palms were sweating, your head down, faced away from Black and his shootist, hiding the gun in your hand. It was a bad time to be caught in the act. You thought about whether this was your chance to kill Black, but he was so close to you both, with his own gun drawn still. And you knew now how hard it would be for Joseph to try to kill him, the fear dripping inside his chest. We shouldn't stick around. Kurilla's guys might find you. You dared to look behind you, look at where they were standing, but you saw in Black's eyes you'd made a mistake. The glint of a gun in your hand, hidden and now revealed as you twisted your body ever so slightly too much. Joseph must have seen the connection too, the spark of realization in Black's eyes. He swung his arm suddenly toward Black, bashing him upside the head with his shotgun and knocking him to the ground with a grunt. The shootist, even while watching closely, was caught off guard, and though he readied his rifle quickly, you had already been looking at him. You aimed your revolver at his head and fired a shot clean through. His mask flew off, twisting in the air. As the shootist fell, his dying trigger finger squeezed enough to let loose a final shot from the tilted rifle. You heard the telltale wet thud of a bullet hitting someone, and Joseph cried out for a moment, hands snapping to clutch his thigh. Ugh! Damn little son of a gun. Still got me. Black was already starting to stir from being knocked down, and you pushed your head under one of Joseph's arms.
Come on, we need to go, now!
Joseph held his arm around your shoulders, using your help to take some of the weight off, but still limping as fast as he could with the pain. You abandoned your plan to go around town and ran down the nearest alley, toward the main street, and toward the fight. You couldn't afford to get caught out by someone again, Black or otherwise. Joseph was too hurt. You just had to get to the saloon. As you reached the stretch... Whoops, wrong word. As you reached the street, everything had lulled once again, the air deadly quiet all of a sudden. You poked your heads out, but wherever people were hiding, it wasn't anywhere near you. The saloon was just across the street. You looked to Joseph, his face so close to yours, and he nodded. You pushed off together, running and walking as fast as you could to get across without being seen. Halfway across the wide street, the saloon porch so close, you looked behind you, only to see Black coming to a halt as your eyes met. Wiping blood off his face from his cracked beak, he aimed his gun at you both from the alley entrance. Your heart skips a beat and you crash to the ground, pulling Joseph with you, hoping you might dodge the bullet. A shot rings out, but it didn't come from behind you, and in fact you quickly looked toward Black to see him ducking down. His hat was knocked off by the unknown shot, and he grabbed it before scuttling back, hiding further in the alley. The shot spooked the hiding gang members too, as a couple shots were fired back, and then many more adding to the cacophony. You picked Joseph and yourself up off the dusty ground, seeing down the street that many were shooting up at some attackers on the roofs. You took off running in a crouch, with your hand balled into a fist around your gun in the back of Joseph's clothes, dragging him with you. Both stumbling up the stairs of the saloon porch, you flung open the doors and helped Joseph inside with haste. There was a loud crack as the wooden doorframe was struck and splintered near your head. As you turn and slam the door shut, you see Black pull away from aiming at you, now having to reload. With the door shut, your eyes adjusted to the dimly lit interior, the sun not quite shining in the same way as last time you were here. Joseph stood with his injured legs slightly off the floor, leaning on a table with one hand. You go over to him and unholster your gun, handing it to him by the barrel, handle pointed upward.
You take it. You need something better than that shotgun.
I have it for a reason, Robin. I'm a real terrible shot. More likely to hit you than who I'm aiming at.
Then take it for good luck. I've had it for a long time and it's always done me well.
He gave you a hesitant look still. You both knew time was of the essence, but he didn't want to put you in danger. You trusted him. You knew this wasn't dangerous.
2 revolvers isn't much good to me. Just take it and hide. Black's still coming after us.
Joseph took the pistol from you and slid his shotgun across the floor to the end of the bar, limping over to hide behind it. You ducked down yourself and scuttled over to the nearest window, listening to the shootout happening outside. I slipped into my accent there briefly. You needed to know where Black Vulture was. You pulled up and peeked over the windowsill. As soon as you pulled your head far enough up, your eyes landed on the distant figure of Black, rifle aimed directly at you. You immediately snapped away from the window and pressed yourself against the wall, holding still as one louder shot echoed in the street. The window next to your head broke with a shrill twang, the panes falling on the sill and shattering either side, the floor covered in glass. You felt a sharp pain pierce your ear and reached up for a moment to feel the tip missing, your fingers slick with blood as you brought them down. The side of your face started to feel wet. You could feel your fur matting and sticking to itself inside your ear. He'd known where you were, he'd almost got to you, but you knew where he was now, and he'd probably try to move and throw you off. You reared your head up along with your gun, spotting Black sneaking away from where he was as he tried to avoid errant bullets. He saw you as you took aim through the window, but you weren't going to falter and let him get the jump on you again. You followed his movement with your hand, watching where he was going, and squeezed the trigger just ahead of him. The gunshot echoed through the saloon, and a single moment later, Black fell with a small spray of blood, kicking up dust as his legs splayed out. You stood up a little, still crouched, peering more clearly over through the window to get a better look at him on the ground. He didn't seem to be breathing. You kept watching for any sign of life, any movements, but even as bullets from the fight hit dirt and wood beside him, he didn't seem to stir. You gingerly kicked the broken glass under you aside, taking a deep breath. You slunk down and sat with your back to the wall, ears down, not wanting to attract any of the shootists still outside. The wary head of Joseph poked out from the end of the bar, looking at you, his eyes then flicking around the window.
I got him. He's dead. Black's dead. We should just lie low here for a bit.
Joseph nodded, shuffling out from behind the bar a bit more. Made a bit of mess of the saloon. Hope Bart won't be too mad about it. You hoped so too. You guessed Sheriff must have told people about what was happening, but you weren't sure. You'd help fix it up if you could. You sat there, waiting, listening still as the fight outside died down. You could hear some distant shouts, sounds of people running, the wind howling through the open window, the crunch of glass. Your ears flicked towards the noise as a feathered hand shot through the window, grasping at your face. The arm grabbed under your chin and pulled and jerked you up. Breaths became caught and strained as you were half choked to the window. You dropped your gun and desperately pulled at the arm, claws digging into the skin of Black's wing as you tried to break free. Another arm threw itself in as he got to his knees, pressing your head against the wooden windowsill and tilting your head back. You could see his face close in your periphery, and his other hand now came to your throat, something sharp and cold resting against your skin. The shard of glass glinted in the sun, and refractions danced around the dim saloon. Your claws hurt from scratching feathers out of his arm. You didn't want to die. Your head forced back, neck thrust forward, exposed, looking at the nothing of the ceiling above you. This is gonna hurt you much more than it's hurting me. The words brushed past your ear. You felt the arm move, the glass start to prick into your skin. A loud bang went off, reverberating around the room and vibrating deep in your body for a moment. You fell to the floor. You crashed into the shattered glass beneath you, twisting to look up at the window, running your hand along your throat with subsiding panic. The arms that had been around you went limp, hanging through the window along with Black's long neck, his face motionless and frozen. The bloodied shard of glass in his hand fell to the floor with a tink. The blood from his head started to drip next to it. You looked over at Joseph and saw him sitting lopsided on the floor, your revolver in his hand still pointed towards the window. He was looking past you at Black, breathing heavily, and then looked in your eyes, his head not moving an inch, just the flick of his stare. He blinked after what seemed like an eternity, and you felt the roughness of breaths in your throat. A hoarse cough every so often. You pushed your hand against the floor and sat up, Joseph putting the gun down carefully beside him. I think we got him for real then. You gave a small, nervous chuckle, as did he. More gunshots started up outside, only less than before. You got on your knees, holstering the gun you'd dropped, and crawled carefully over the broken glass, across the floor to Joseph. He took a gentle hold of your shorter arm, a warm squeeze. We might be in danger here if someone sees us, especially with old Big Beak there being a window ornament.
Yeah. We could go in the storeroom for now, I suppose.
He looked over at the bar at the door to the store, the gentle curve of thinking on his brow, before meeting your eyes again. The saloon has rooms, don't it? I think that's what Bart said.
Yeah. Must be upstairs.
Should we go? Up? We'll be a darn lot safer and comfier than down here. You thought about it for a moment. Your only worry was whether you might get blood on something from when Bartholomew came back. Though, considering the state of the saloon already, you thought, what the hell? We'll deal with it later. Together.
Yeah. Let's.
You stood up and helped Joseph, with his stiff thighs still, to get up too. You walked briskly together past the window, out of sight. You took your time getting up the stairs, taking it slow for Joseph, who was huffing and breathing through gritted teeth as he made his way up. You stumbled along the landing, one arm around each other, towards the furthest room. We will pick up and see the aftermath of this battle, and indeed the ending of Lookouts, next time. Thanks for watching, everybody.